What to do if it's too windy on your wedding day? Probably a question you've not really thought about. You're probably worried about it being too wet or rainy, but the wind has the potential to really ruin a wedding or an outdoor event. Rain is a bit rubbish for guests and yourselves, but wind has the potential for potentially taking the tent down completely or having to rearrange set up, take down days due to high winds. So yeah, if you're planning an outdoor event, here are my top tips for what to do if it's windy. First of all, I would speak to your tent supplier. Each different type of tent has a different wind speed rating, and each manufacturer will have a different wind speed rating. This will be the speed that the tent can take due to their sort of the shape of bell tents, stretch tents and teepees. They're a lot more wind resistant than kind of traditional white marquees, so they can take up to higher wind speeds than sort of clear span type marquees. But speak to your tent supplier to find out what their wind speed rating is for each tent, and also what they do in those wind speeds. As an example, a teepee might have a wind speed rating of 40 mile an hour, meaning that once the wind gusts, that's very important to remember, it's wind gusts, reach 40 mile an hour, your guests will have to evacuate the tent. And so then in extreme circumstances, I've heard horror stories of at festivals where tent suppliers have turned up because of 50 mile an hour winds and they've come taking down the tents. So speak to your tent supplier about what their wind speed rating is for each tent. Choose a sensible location for your tent. The edge of cliffs and down valleys are going to have higher wind speeds than more sheltered areas, so pick a sensible spot for your tent. Use natural wind breaks, as in buildings, walls, along hedgerows. So if you're sort of planning to get married in the middle of a field and it's going to be windy, think about maybe moving it to the side if there's sort of houses or trees to act as a bit of a wind block. If you are having a stretch tent or a teepee and it is looking like it's going to be windy on the day of your wedding, I'd recommend having, unfortunately, the view is usually where the wind comes from. So if you're overlooking a sort of nice fields, nice views, that's usually where the wind comes in from. So that's usually your lifted side. Unfortunately, if it's going to be windy, I would have to flip the tent 180. So have the back down, the back of the teepee, back of the stretch tent facing towards the wind, and have the front lifted, therefore acting as a sort of a wind block from the wind. Remember that your tent isn't just going to be up for the day of your wedding or your event. It's going to be up for 1 or 2 days before the event and 1 or 2 days after the event. So actually it could be looking fine on your wedding day, but the sort of setup days or takedown days could be looking really windy. So your tent supplier might have to change the dates they set up for their own sort of safety and the tent safety as well. So if it is looking windy the sort of few days before or after your wedding, you be prepared you might have to make some adjustments to your setup or takedown days. Obviously the takedown days don't usually matter as much because you've had the wedding, but yeah, if they told you it's happening on a Wednesday and you're excited because you've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to dress it, and actually it's blowing a hoolie for those 2 days, your tent supplier might have to move the setup day, so be prepared for that. It being windy will have an impact on your decorations. So if you've got napkins, flowers, sort of table decorations, nameplates, if that's the right word, you have to think about how you're going to anchor them down, either with cable ties or blue tack. So yeah, in windy weather, it's going to have an effect on your decorations. So sort of think about how you can either anchor them to the table or use kind of natural wind blocks inside the tent. Perhaps having kind of sofas and chairs to act as a bit of a windbreak between flowers. You don't want to get blown over. Again, speak to your tent supplier and ask them, do they have high-speed wind contingency plans and how that will impact on your wedding? Do they have additional straps they put in? Do they extra stake it if it is super windy? Most stretch tents are meant to be just a canopy, but nowadays you can add walls to the sides. Do they have walls that they could put in if it's extra windy? Speak to them, or someone will be on call if it's windy, because once the wind gets into a tent and starts flapping around straps, that could be quite catastrophic. So yes, speak to your tent supplier. So as mentioned at the beginning, wind is probably the worst thing that can happen on your wedding day from a kind of actual practical point of view, or it might have to get taken down. So do give wind some consideration when planning your event. Speak to your tent supplier about what their wind speed rating is for each tent and each manufacturer. Do they have contingency plans for if it is windy, and sort of what adjustments can they make on the day if it is windy? So you've got any questions about that or any other topics, let me know. I love talking windy tents. Cheers, bye.